Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So this is going to be like a part two of my sort of like my pregnancy experience story type thing. Um, Part one was just like the pregnancy overall. And then this one's going to be about like the labor and delivery side of it. So sorry, my cat is crazy. Um, so it might get a little bit like detailed and like a little bit too like TMI for some people, but I know when I was pregnant and especially like right before I was about to give birth, I was looking up a lot of videos like this because I like wanted to know what I was in for and sort of like other people's experiences and like how that went for other people and stuff. So I feel like it's still useful for some people at least, or they might find it entertaining to like hear my story or whatever. Um, it's nothing too crazy. Like I didn't have anything super abnormal happen or anything, but yeah, I'll just like I guess get into it. So uh, basically, I had gestational diabetes for uh, well, I guess I had it for the whole time I was pregnant, but you don't get diagnosed until like 28 weeks or something like that. So really, I only knew I had it for like the last trimester of my pregnancy. But because it wasn't 100% diet controlled, like I was also on insulin injections for that, they, at least where I live in Canada, they basically tell you that if you are taking insulin, they want to induce you at 38 weeks instead of letting you go till 40 or longer, like whenever it naturally happens. Um, because I guess it's slightly less risky to do it that way because the longer you go with gestational diabetes, I guess when you're taking insulin and stuff, it's like more risky or something. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. All I know is that it was like for safety, health reasons, whatever. They had to induce me at like around 38 weeks. So this was like a little bit of a shock to me at the time because I didn't, even when I found out I had diabetes, like I didn't know that that was going to impact like the actual birth process. Like I thought, okay, so it'll change like the pregnancy and how I, my diet and things like that. But I didn't think it would like change how the actual birth happened until they told me that and told me that they'd have to induce me and everything. So it came as like a little bit of a shock, but I don't know. I wasn't that worried about it. I guess because I'd never had an induction before. I'd never given birth before in general, but I'd heard like a lot of other women who had kind of saying like, oh no, I don't want to be induced or whatever, like as if it was like a really bad thing or like a really not fun experience or something. So I was a little bit like worried, but at the same time, like I had nothing to compare it to, so I was just kind of like, well, whatever. What's the difference? Like, I don't know. um, so, and even to this day, like I can't tell you guys if it's worse or not because like I've only had it happen one way, so I only know what I've gone through. I don't know how it is not to naturally go into labor or whatever, or if it makes a difference. But yeah, so basically I had like an appointment date set for my induction, um, which was like sometime in December. And then they basically told me they were gonna call me the day of to see if they would have room for me, pretty much, because I guess they were pretty busy. I guess there were like a lot of a lot of people like giving birth in December of 2020. Maybe it was like the pandemic and everybody was like getting pregnant during that time. I don't know. But they were pretty busy, so they were like, we're gonna have to call you and let you know if you can come in on that day. And they said a couple days prior to my like scheduled induction, I had to get something called like cervical ripening done. It sounds super gross, but but basically, what it is they want to like thin out your like cervix because so that the baby comes out easier or something. I don't know. But basically, there's a couple of ways that they could do that. There's like a pill you can take that does it, I guess, or maybe you don't. Oh God, I can't even remember. um, I don't know if it's a pill that like an oral. I don't think it's like you ingest it. I think it's like they put it in there, and like it's like they stick it up, right? Like a pill that they stick in there, and it like ripens everything. I don't know. That's not the method that I had, so that's why I don't really know what I'm speaking about when I talk about that one. But they also said there's something called like a it was called a catheter. I'm not sure why, because when I think of catheter, I think of like a traditional catheter, you know, to help you pee and stuff. It wasn't that. Basically, it was like something they put in you, and then it's got like a balloon on the end of it, kind of a thing, and then they blow up the balloon, which like essentially stretches your cervix for you. Something like that. I don't know. This is probably the least informative video because I don't really know exactly what I'm talking about. I should have made it closer to when it happened because I feel like my memory was probably better back then and I could give you a more accurate description of what I'm talking about, but it feels like so long ago now that I barely remember what I'm talking about. But all I know is that I had to go in a few days before my induction, and then they gave me this, it's called like a Foley catheter or something. So they gave me that, and they do all that in there. And it leaves like a tube kind of like hanging out of you, and then they just taped that like to my thigh, and so that I could put my pants on and go home and everything. But they pretty much told me like, okay, we're gonna put this in you, and then it's gonna slowly stretch your cervix, and you're gonna have like a little bit of cramping because this process of stretching or whatever is gonna obviously cause some discomfort and cramping and stuff. But it should go away after a few hours. So that's literally pretty much all they said to me, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. And they did not sell it, okay? They did not tell me the full extent of the cramping because they made it sound like it was just like period cramps and like whatever, get on with your day. And it was like an outpatient procedure or whatever. So like, I think that's what they're called. It could be the wrong terminology, but like it was like you just go in, they do it, and you go home. So they were letting me leave the hospital and everything. So I got it put in and I left, and then literally like halfway through my drive home, I was like dying. Like the cramps were so bad. So bad. Like I legit thought like that I was just gonna have the baby because like they did tell me that the catheter thing could just trigger like an actual, like it could trigger me to actually go into labor. And I was like, okay, that must be what's happening because this is really, really painful. And yeah, so halfway home I had like severe cramps, and then like I got home and I tried to like wait it out, and it wasn't really getting better. And it was also like coming in like waves, so it was kind of like similar to like, it was basically contractions. Like it would like come on really, really strong and then go away for a couple of minutes and then come back and then go away for a couple of minutes and then come back, but it was never like super close together, so I wasn't too worried, but it was pretty intense. So I thought maybe like that it was like go time, but then it kind of, after a few hours, like they said, it kind of went away. But the intensity, like they did not prepare me for like how painful that actually was. But then it went away like sort of later in the afternoon, and then I went back the next day, and then they had to remove it because, like I said, it's something they leave inside you for like a day, and then they take it out. So I went in and they took it out, and like everything was fine. They said it like had dilated me like 3 centimeters or something, which is what they expected would happen. So they were like, okay, this just preps you for the induction. So you're like already, your body's kind of like already starting to be like ready. Artificially, I guess, because they use this catheter. So that was like the day of my, like the day I got it removed was like the day I was supposed to be induced. But like I said, they had to call me later and let me know if there was like availability. So I went home, and then I guess it was around like 4 p.m. They called me back and they were like, okay, you can come in for your induction. So I went in. It was like super, with my husband, of course. It was like a super slow process, and like because of the pandemic, they wouldn't even let him come in with me until it was like for sure that they were like it was happening. Like it was like until they pretty much until they hooked me up to the Pitocin drip, like they wouldn't let him in. So he had to like wait in the parking lot, like in the car, until they were like, okay, we're gonna hook you up now. So then he was allowed to come in, and they set me up, hooked me up to the Pitocin thing, and like it was pretty much slow at first, like nothing crazy happened. I guess I had some mild contractions maybe, but like nothing really noticeable. They were like, oh, why don't you walk around and like sort of like get some exercise, walk around the hallways and stuff. So we did that. Um, and then they were like, okay, well, it's not progressing super fast, so why don't we like break your water? Because like my water hadn't even broken yet or anything. So I was like, okay. Um, this is where it got kind of weird. So the they went into, I guess, break my like water artificially or whatever, like controlled breaking of the water thing, and um the doctors like I guess broke it, and like I felt stuff coming out, and it just like kept coming, and I was like, that seems like a lot, and they're like, yeah, that is like kind of a lot, and like it was a nurse that was like there kind of like helping, I guess. I can't even remember, it's so foggy now, but I think it was a nurse that was doing it, or maybe she was just supervising as the doctor was doing it. I think it was the nurse who was doing it. And she was like, yeah, that's like a lot. And then all of a sudden she was like, get a doctor in here. And so like an actual doctor came in, and this whole this whole process was like not just like let's poke it. Like you imagine it like they're just like popping a balloon and then just let it come out, but it was not like that. Like this doctor had like both fists like in there, right? And she was just like maneuvering the baby, I guess, around, and meanwhile like water's coming out, and they were like, okay, that's a lot, like we need some towels. And like it was just like crazy because the nurses and the doctors just had no idea like what was going on, like why there was so much. um they were just like, well, I mean, I guess the doctor kind of knew. She was like, oh, this is like a condition, like she has like a condition. It was called, I'm probably gonna not say this right, but it was called like Polyhydramnios or something like that. Basically, it's like when you have excess amniotic fluid, and it can be associated with the diabetes. But like I was never diagnosed with that, and they said usually when you go for ultrasounds and stuff, they can tell when this is the case, and it should have been in my file, I guess, but it wasn't. None of the doctors like knew beforehand, so that's why they were a little bit surprised, and they were like, oh, like it's not like they didn't know what was happening, but they didn't know that was going to happen with me. Like it's not like something they'd never seen before, but it's like usually I guess it would be in your file and they would anticipate that this would happen. But I guess my doctors kind of, and my ultrasound technicians kind of like didn't notice or something. So it was not in my file, so they did not anticipate it with me. And then it was just like basically a tidal wave coming out, and they were like, we need towels, we need towels. And like just it was just like all over the floor. Like I guess they say like a normal woman, it would be like a water bottle's worth, I guess, of fluid would come out. So they kind of like had like a little puppy pad down for me, like which is like the normal what they do. And this, instead of like being like a water bottle's worth, it was like gallons were like coming out. So they're like, we need more puppy pads, we need more towels, we need everything. So like so that was just kind of funny. I mean, at the time it wasn't that funny because I didn't know what was happening, and I was like, is this normal? And they're like, not really, but like it's okay. And they said it's probably a good thing that I had my water broken at the hospital and didn't have it happen like at home, like a lot of women, because I guess with the extra fluid that's like in there, it can cause like there's more room for the baby to just kind of like float around, and the cord and stuff to float around. So there's a greater chance that the like umbilical cord can wrap around the baby's neck and stuff like that. So people who have this condition are actually supposed to go to the hospital to get their water broken. They're not supposed to wait for it to happen on its own, because they want the doctor to be able to facilitate the baby's positioning and stuff as they're doing it. So that's why they're like, it's a good thing that things played out this way, because it could have been actually kind of a dangerous situation had this happened like when you're just at home or something. It could have been bad. So it was kind of all for the best. But yeah, so that was the first little thing that was just kind of like unusual, I guess, or unexpected with my whole birth thing. But then after they broke my water, like contractions sort of started to like pick up and stuff. And obviously at a certain point, I shouldn't say obviously because not everybody does, but at a certain point I was like, okay, give me the epidural because like it's painful. But I don't know, like I guess I feel like I could have gone longer without it, but at a certain point I was like, why suffer? Like, because I knew that I probably couldn't have withstood that pain for, another 10 hours or something. Um, Although I got the epidural like kind of before I really feel like I absolutely needed it. But again, like I said, I just felt like why put myself through additional pain if I know that I'm not probably going to make it all the way till the end without taking it. So I might as well get some relief now. So they gave me the epidural, and that was fine. That was amazing. Like everything was way more comfortable for me after that. However, they had some problem. They had like a monitor in. How do I say this? Okay, so basically, they kept checking. This is normal. Like they do this, I'm pretty sure with everybody, but right, at least when you get induced, they would regularly check to see how much I'd progressed, like how much my cervix had dilated or whatever. So they would just go in there and feel around and see like how many centimeters. And they said I'd gotten up to like 5 centimeters, 6 centimeters, whatever. But then it kind of stopped, and it wasn't going any further than that. And they'd check every hour, and it would be like, okay, still 6 centimeters, still 6 centimeters. So they were like, okay, well, it's not really progressing, so we're gonna increase the dose of pitocin, because like the more pitocin you get, the I guess more that it brings on the labor, is my understanding. So they were like, okay, we're gonna put the pitocin up. So they did that, but then whenever they did that, they also were monitoring. They had like a monitor going up there and then attached to the baby somehow. Like I think it maybe just sticks on or something. I'm not sure how they attach it, but it was somehow monitoring the baby at the same time. And every time they put the pitocin up, my contractions would get stronger, but then the baby's heart rate would like drop. So they're like, well, that's not good. So then they'd take the pitocin down. But then when they took the pitocin down, like it wouldn't progress any further, and like my contractions would like ease up, and then I wouldn't dilate any further. So they were like, well, what do we do here? Like, we can't get you far enough to like start pushing without putting the pitocin up. But then when we do that, the baby's heart rate drops, and we can't have that happen because that's too dangerous, obviously. So we kind of were like, well, what are we gonna do? Blah blah blah. They kind of gave me at that point, they kind of gave me a heads up that like this is kind of looking like C-section direction. Not to freak you out or anything, but like we're sort of thinking this is a situation that's developing into like it might turn into like an emergency C-section type of a thing. So just be prepared. And that was obviously really devastating for me to hear, because obviously I didn't want to have to go that route. I wanted to have like a normal, natural kind of a birth process. So I was kind of like, okay, well, I don't really want to do that. So let's just wait and see what happens. So we just kept kind of like waiting it out. She would continue checking, and things didn't progress and whatnot. So we even tried different like positioning. Like she would have me lay like on my side, and then if the baby wasn't happy with that, like if the heart rate dropped a little bit, she would be like, okay, let's try a different position. So I'd be on my back for a little bit, and then he would kind of like that better. So we would stay in that position for a while, and there was a lot of just like waiting and monitoring, and things didn't really progress that well. And then the longer I was sort of on this pitocin drip, like I was on the pitocin the whole time, just kind of like waiting to see if things would spring into action, and they never kind of really did. But then the baby's heart rate started to just go really wacky, and like have weird periods where it would drop like just randomly, and it would start happening more and more frequently the longer we waited. So then at a certain point, like they were just, I think this was at about, like I started the pitocin at like 7 p.m. So this was probably about 3 in the morning at that point. So that's how many hours we'd kind of been like waiting and whatever. And they kind of told me like, okay, I think we have to make the call at this point that we're gonna do a C-section. So I was like, all right, bummer. But like at that point, like what do you do? Like there was nothing more that I could do at that point. I had tried everything we could try, like the doctors had tried everything they could try, and there was really just no other option. So they kind of, and that's kind of what they told me. They were like, I know it's not like what you want to hear, but like this is where we're at, and like that's kind of what we have to do at this point. Like we can sit around and wait and see if it's gonna happen, but like we've done that and it's not happening. So I was like, okay, so we decided we're just gonna do C-section. So they wheeled me, they prepped me for surgery. The guy came in that did the what do you call it? The epidural. He came back in, and I guess because the epidural doesn't like fully freeze you. It just, you don't really feel pain anymore, but you still feel stuff. Like if somebody pokes you, like you still can feel the poke. It just doesn't hurt. Or like if people put like something hot or something cold on your skin, you just don't feel the temperature. Like you can feel something touching you. You just don't feel like extreme heat, extreme cold, stuff like that. But obviously for a C-section, you need to feel nothing. So I guess the anesthesiologist came back in and I did some adjusting with something. I don't know. Maybe he gave me more. I assume he obviously must have given me more drugs of some kind to like turn it into complete paralysis essentially. So that all happened really quickly. Like it felt like it happened within like a matter of minutes. I don't know how long it really took. Probably not that much longer than that, to be honest. Like they were like, okay, it's go time. Like we're doing this now. And then like I was numb within a little while. The doctor kind of like touched my stomach where they were gonna cut, and they were like, do you feel anything? Do you feel anything? And then I didn't. So they were like, all right, let's go. So they started like opening me up kind of thing. And actually before that, they were kind of waiting for, I guess, a team of like more nurses and stuff to deal with the baby once he came out, like somebody to like weigh him and do all the tests and whatnot. But then his heart rate, as soon as they gave me the further anesthetic to like numb me completely, the baby's heart rate dropped like significantly. So they were like, we can't wait any longer. We're just gonna have to do this now. And then they kind of like went into like crazy mode. Like they were just like, okay, we gotta do this like right now. Like it's like, it became like an emergency situation kind of a thing. So they were kind of acting fast and doing all that. And like I was just sort of lying there. It's like kind of a weird, nobody ever told me this like when I watched other people's YouTube videos about this, but like when you go in for a C-section, they like, it feels so like medieval torture-ish because they like strap you to like a thing, like you're like lying on a thing, like imagine me lying on a gurney type of thing, and I thought you just like could lie there, but no, they like strap your arms down so you're like this with your wrists are like strapped down to like the bed, and like you're like lying there and you're like okay, and then they put like a curtain up so you can't like see yourself being chopped up and stuff, like it's, and they have all these really bright like neon lights like just right in your face, and it just feels really torture chamber-ish. It's like it's not actually that bad, but just the whole vibe of the room was just really like scientist kind of torture chamber kind of vibes. Like I wish that they did something different with the decor in there or something that would make it a little more calming, but they don't. They're just like, okay, this is like this is the operating room and it's really creepy and whatever. But yeah, they did the C-section. Everything went fine with that. The baby came out. He was breathing and everything, like crying right away, and so there was no like scary moments there, which was good. I got to hold him kind of like on top of my chest kind of right away, but my husband had to kind of hold him too because I was, like I said, I was like strapped down. Like I don't even remember if my hands were free to like touch him or anything. I don't even think they were. I think I was just like strapped there, and he was like, my husband was like holding him kind of like on my chest. But I couldn't breastfeed him right away or anything because they had to sew me up still, obviously. So honestly, the weirdest thing about the C-section was I thought it would take longer to get in there and get him out, but it literally, once they went in there to get him out, it was like boom boom, he's out. And then like the longest part of the process was them stitching me up, because then I had to lie there for like probably a good like 40 minutes or so while they fixed everything. But like the actual, I don't know why, I just imagined it being more like it would take a while before they pulled him out and then it would be a quicker stitch up, but it was the opposite. It was like really short, like within like a minute he was like popped out, and then the whole stitching me up process took longer. So I don't really know what was happening. Obviously I didn't want to look at what was happening, so I was just lying there, but I know it just took a while for, they were just working on me for a while, that's all I know. And then after he was born, he was born at like 4 in the morning, and then we had to give him, so because of the diabetes, they have to check the baby right away to see if their blood sugars are all messed up, because it's something that like affects them as well as the mother. So they checked my blood sugar, they checked his blood sugar. I was good. He had to get like some formula to fix his blood sugar levels a little bit, because they were a little bit low, I guess, but not like crucially, like not critically low. So they just gave him like a little bit of formula, and then after that I just had to stay in the hospital for, I want to say like 2 to 3 days for like the recovery and everything. But it was not too bad. Like it was a lot of people made it sound like, a lot of people that I'd spoke to before it happened, like kind of really made me fearful of C-sections and how like horrendous they are and stuff. But from my experience anyways, and like everybody's different I guess, but like mine like really wasn't that bad. The recovery wasn't that bad. Maybe it's because I built it up in my head and thought it was going to be like the worst thing I've ever gone through in my life, and like it just felt like, I don't know, like I've had like my wisdom teeth out, and the recovery of that was, you know, also challenging, but like it wasn't like, oh my god, like worst thing in the world. It was kind of like similar, I guess, to that. Like they didn't even give me any like really strong painkillers afterwards. They just gave me like Tylenol, and maybe that's because I was nursing, so they couldn't give me anything else, but that seemed to be enough to like really, like I had to take it every few hours for a couple of days. But it was enough to, like, I wasn't in excruciating pain or anything. Everything healed pretty well, like normally. I didn't have any infection or issues like that. So everything went fairly well after that. So yeah, nothing super dramatic, I guess, with my whole birth story, but I guess I just wanted to make this video maybe to reassure people that are that have like a planned C-section, or even that are worried about like having to have like an emergency C-section like last minute or anything. Like it's really not that bad. Obviously I don't think it's anybody's like first choice, but like it's not like, oh my god, my life is over because I had to get a C-section. Like everything, I know there are obviously risks, so I don't want to say that nothing will happen to you for sure, but like it just, I don't think it's as scary as everybody seems to make it sound. Like a lot of other moms or other people like seem to make it sound like, oh my god, the worst thing that could ever happen is a C-section. And it, like, for me it wasn't that dramatic. It was just kind of, and the doctors made it seem like it's pretty run of the mill. Like I guess they say every, like 1 in every 3 pregnancies like ends up being a C-section or something, so it's like, it's pretty common, like, so it's not like crazy or anything. But yeah, that's basically the story. I'll get back to doing some makeup videos soon, because that's kind of how I started this channel. I wanted to do like a palette collection, but I'm still waiting on some stuff in the mail. So once that stuff comes in the mail, I can show you guys all my pretty new makeup items. But yeah, that's it for now, and I will see you guys in the next one. Okay, bye.